Welcome, everybody, to the Firebrand Podcast. This is your host, Grant McGaw. We're going to bring it right back over to Miami, Florida, to one of my very, very good friends. I actually met her some time ago. I think it was at the Miami Jewish Hospital down there in Miami. Met her, we talked. Then I see her over here at Jackson. We had more conversations. I see her at Jackson again. We had more conversations. I thought it would be a good discussion to really understand her career, her history, and her influence. That is wonderful. So before we get started, I want you to introduce yourself, Nicole. Do you mind doing that?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. And Grant, thank you so much for this opportunity. I also actually want to thank Jackson Health System, and I want to thank Dr. Carol Biggs for connecting us. As you stated, we've met in the past, but this reconnection was because of Dr. Carol Biggs. I want to send the kudos and the thank yous to her. So yes, I am Nicole Dieudonne. I've been in nursing for approximately 37 years or so, and at least 30 of them has actually been in nursing leadership. So
Yeah.
that's me in a nutshell.
Well, let's frame that story at the beginning. You were just going there. I love to understand a person's origin story. Like what got them kind of going. So when we start at the beginning, and we want to understand your inspiration. What inspired you to explore the path of leadership consulting after decades of operational leadership or nursing leadership, I should say?
Good question. Great question, actually. I am actually at a point in my career, as you stated, I've had 30 plus years of nursing leadership, right? The normal trajectory for a nursing leader for me, I started as a frontline staff nurse. I soon became, a few years in between, I became an assistant nurse manager. From that, I quickly became a manager and then to associate director of patient care services, and then director of several different clinical areas. And for most people, the natural trajectory is now to become a chief nursing officer. That's where it probably, or the chief nurse exec is actually the end all. But for me, I decided to push the pause button and I decided to pivot. And I want to say a lot of this pivoting, even though it was a thought in the past, has been due to me meeting you
Mm.
and the brand strategy and blueprint that I have just recently gone through sort of helped to solidify my moving forward with nursing consultant.
I
Because
think
of my years of experience, because of my beliefs now in me being the subject matter expert on many of nursing areas and the nursing profession, I think that I have a lot to offer as a nursing consultant. So yes, I am pivoting.
well, I think you kind of nailed it there. You have a lot to offer. And when we worked together about 4 or 5 weeks or so, and you shared a very powerful story about your cultural heritage, your personal resilience, and how those experiences have shaped your leadership philosophy today. Can you share with the audience just a little bit about that so they get a better understanding of who you are?
Yes, Grant, I am, as I shared, a Bahamian American of Haitian and Cuban descent, multicultural. I came over to Florida during my teenage years, not necessarily sure of what avenue or where I wanted to, my career path at that time, just actually lifing, right? And interestingly enough, I became a teenage mom at an early age. So my life story was not necessarily linear or designed with a clear paths for me. I chose them as I moved along. And I decided to choose nursing as a career. My mom always instilled in me, you needed to do something. I'm not sure what you're going to do, but you're going to do something. And education was at the forefront from my mom. So in choosing nursing, I just chose something. But interestingly enough, I absolutely fell in love with nursing. I resisted for almost a year the path of nursing leadership. Thank God for the folks, and I'm not even sure Steve, I'll call his name, that believed in me and kept pushing. And I actually absolutely fell in love with nursing leadership as well, because I also realized that, hey, I can still affect what happens at the bedside, because I always believed in patient care and caring for patients, but I can actually still do that as a leader. So I absolutely fell in love with nursing leadership as well.
Well, I'm glad you did. I know a lot of people have benefited from you and what you bring to the table with your nursing expertise. And you went through a comprehensive brand blueprint process with me. I wanted to ask you, what surprised you the most about your own strengths or your own potential?
So what surprised me the most about my own strengths, Grant, is that it was a validation for me. It was a validation that, hey, you are strong enough for this, right?
Yeah.
You are strong in these particular subject matters. You too can do this. What I realized was on point as well was my potentials, my weaknesses in the business strategy, right? My weaknesses or opportunities. I don't really like the word weakness, but my opportunities as it relates to um, um, my opportunities as it relates to technology
Yeah.
and building my marketing platform. So that was always and still is a challenge for me that I am working through.
I tell you, I'm glad you said that. I feel there's a misstep by a lot of executives today, whether you're in healthcare, you're in finance, you're in technology, or where you may be, that you're not utilizing the digital world the way it can be, the digital platforms as a form of showcasing who you are and what you bring to the table. You can't just rely on a resume, a CV, a small circle of influence to get you to that next level, whether it's career development or business development, because the world is just moving too fast.
Right.
People do business with or hire people that they know, like, and trust. How do you establish that now in a digital first world? And we kind of explored about that, how you can take advantage of it. Now, something that I learned that you have your own framework or a process called the Compassionate Leadership Circle, which is a very unique program. But I want you to share, because this is great that you have this. Most people, you asking that question. So what's your platform? What's your framework? What's your process that's unique to you? And then you get crickets. You have something, the Compassionate Leadership Circle. And
And
so I would like
actually,
you to kind of share that with us, and why now is the right time for this kind of leadership healing, in your opinion?
Grant, another great question, another great thought. Compassionate Leadership Circle is actually something that we do every day as nursing leaders, or we want to do every day as nursing leaders. Choosing to lead with compassion. It is a framework based upon having empathy, based upon providing psychological safety, based upon your daily interactions with not just your employees, but your interactions with yourself. Oftentimes, as leaders, we do so much of taking care of other people, but we have to find compassion and choose and sort of take a look at those what's available to us in compassionate leadership for not just our employees, for ourselves, so that we can better lead with empathy and better lead with care and kindness. It is so important. We have to model that behavior within ourselves so that we can impart that onto our employees. So what does it actually do? Because I've
Right.
also mentioned that I realized that leadership still affects the patient at the bedside. So when we take care of ourselves better as a leader and we're compassionate and we're addressing our employees in a compassionate and kind way, that translates to compassionate care to the patients at the bedside. It's a trickle-down domino effect for everyone.
And this is important because so I work in that technology world. I work with a lot of people outside of the bedside, the care world, and they need people like yourself that know the front lines and they know the business lines, the strategies and the finance. Because when they're developing programs or they're developing applications, they kind of miss the mark sometimes. And because they just don't understand what it's like in the real world to operate in the nursing setting, right? I want to know now from a challenge standpoint, do you think you're going to face some transitioning from a traditional role in nurse leadership to transitioning more about, and bringing forth your visibility and influence as a nurse consultant to help these other industries really find out, because they all want to sell or present a solution to the healthcare world without really understanding all that's happening. What challenges do you think you're going to face as you transition?
First and foremost, believing in myself is the first challenge. You have to get over that hurdle that, oh, am I right for this? Is this right for me? Um, I almost want to be cliche and say, join the Me Too movement. I too can do this, right? In that sense. What challenges I will face or I will potentially face is the lack of business acumen. I have to make sure that I am knowledgeable, just as knowledgeable as I am about nursing, knowledgeable about the business of healthcare consulting, right? It's vast. There are many avenues or there are many lanes that you can swim in, but what exactly is it that you want to do? So knowing what it is that you want to do, which lane that you want to be in, and knowing the business around this nursing consultant is going to be important. Thirdly, for me, it's technology. And you touched on it before, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but I will absolutely have to be more involved in um, creating my platform and making sure that I'm visible on whichever platform it is, whichever organization, nursing organization, just sharing my story and being present.
I think that's so key that you get it, you understand that, and you're helping everybody on all sides of the ball that are, at the end of the day, we all want to have a better, positive health outcome for people. And there's certain things you can do well, and then we find that certain, aspects of businesses just don't understand why this is not going to work. I think you fill that gap. And speaking of gaps, we're talking about, especially doing our program, a skills gap analysis. I want to know, how did that skills gap analysis help you first gain clarity on your next chapter? And what specific areas did you focus as far as improvement?
So I remember, I think this was after week 2 or week 3, you and I reviewed this, and it stood out for me because it actually speaks to me and it resonates with me quite well. The areas was, if I remember correctly, was strategic communication, business development, healthcare policy, regulatory, which I am great at in healthcare. I'm great with leadership development. The emotional intelligence part for me, I managed to shine. I did well. Where my opportunities was again in the business segment of it, as well as the marketing. So the skills gap for me, not only did it provide, and I thank you for this, what my opportunities are, but it also provided for me a roadmap on how to go about improving those. So now it's up to me to do the work, right?
Yeah.
So the skills gap is important, not just for me to know, but for me to work on.
Well, I'll tell you, we came up with a brand tagline during that process
We did.
in word 3, and that was, ND, right, which is your initials. And that's nurturing difference, leading change. Did you think that resonated with you? Did that like you got those 4 to 5 words? Does that like just say just exude who you are?
Absolutely. Nursing different, exuding change. Absolutely. Um, Again, I stumbled on nursing. It wasn't something I said, oh my God, I'm going to grow up and be a nurse. However, I always find that I want to make a difference and I always want to leave a place far better than I found it. So exuding change for me is even as a simplistic in what I do on my day to day and when I'm visiting someone, it's just that innate in me. So nurturing difference, exuding change, yes, for me, it's absolutely true.
I love it. I love it. Now you've chosen to lead with trust, empathy, and cultural intelligence. So, in your view, what what do you feel is the biggest blind spot in current healthcare leadership today?
The biggest blind spot. I think in healthcare on a daily basis, the leaders are insisting on us ensuring that we care for the patients. There is a lot of effort for a better choice of words around patient experience and making sure that we are um, measuring our metrics or reaching our metrics and accountability. The blind spot for me is the leader.
Mhm.
How are we taking care of the leader? How much are we actually investing in our leaders so that they can do all of those other things, such as meet the metrics, ensure safe and effective quality patient care, and ensure staff morale is held and staff are excited or happy about what they do every single day. The blind spot is the leader. We really and truly need to find a culture and do a culture shift in nursing leadership where we're caring for our nursing leaders. They too come to work on a daily basis with so much going on, but they're expected to take care of so many other people, right?
Ah, well said.
They must take care of themselves first.
You got what you just said there, the investment, where are we putting our dollars, especially if you're, a leader, you're responsible for millions and millions of dollars and revenue and profit and loss and those other things,
Yes,
thousands of employees. But what investment do we have? Not just always, salary wise, it's the training, the understanding, building cultural awareness around that. I think what you just said there, as far as a blind spot, something we should take note of and really, really think through that and say, hey, are we truly investing in our leadership? Because if you're building a building, these are the linchpins or the pillars of the organization. And if one of
right.
them becomes weak, the whole building, it kind of breaks down. So, which leads me to my next question, which, during this whole process now, did you have a breakthrough moment, like during your brand journey, where everything you felt started to click for you during this process?
Yeah. Wow. Yes. I think maybe it was session one or two, maybe session one, and you said to me, and I was toggling between exactly what I wanted to do as director of nursing operations, and I've done that, and I think I've done that well, and I still have some to learn, but I also have this consultant piece, and you'd ask me, say, Nicole, write your story. And I'm like, write my story? What do you mean, write my story? I've never written my own story. And, but writing that story, writing my story and just taking the time to do that was what clicked for me. It brought me so much clarity into what I want to do next or what I want to be a part of.
Mhm.
Um, Consulting, um, leading change, helping other organizations bring forth change as a consultant, um, future state consulting on my own. And, interestingly enough, Grant, though, it brought clarity because we do this I've been doing this for years, and I think a lot of nurses do it. I've traveled as a interim director of nursing to different organizations across the state. And it's interesting when you hear someone's asking you outside of your typical organization for your voice and for your opinion as the subject matter expert to something that's happening. And I'm going, oh my God, they're asking me, right? So what brought me clarity was writing that story and helping me to connect the dots to what I want to do next and making me aware of what it is that I do well and what it is that I have to offer.
I tell you, your working with you has been a treat for me because I learn from every single person that I work with, and I'm always um, humbled by what I discover and find out. People they share their personal story. Like, wow, I didn't know that. And you educate yourself. These are real things. Experiences teaches you, educates you, and you get an appreciation. Now you had two areas, what I call your differentiation, how you're different from other nurse leaders that might have a similar background that you have, but you really shine in these two areas of leadership, what I call leadership retention, how you retain leadership, team well-being, which you kind of talked about even during this podcast, how you really look out for the team, including yourself as the leader, and then cultural recovery, which I didn't. I was a cultural recovery system alignment. I'm like, help me understand that even more because you live in this world. So, if I were a nurse leader and I'm listening, to this, and nurse leaders who they might feel stuck, what's one thing you would tell them about reclaiming their own voice and redefining their own success?
Reclaiming your own voice and redefining your own success. First and foremost, I will say push that pause button. Push that pause button because I think as nursing leaders, nursing is forever evolving and there's always something that's going on, right? And we're moving really, really fast because we have one project and it would be a financial project or be it a project that affects direct patient care. We're moving rapidly. Push the pause button and say to yourself, what about me? Why am I stuck? What is it that I need to learn? What is it that I need to do differently? How do I show up differently in order to affect the change? Additionally, when you push that pause button, take a look at what you're doing. Are you doing it for the status, the next level, the career, or does it really and truly make you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Take a look within and then reclaim. Take some time out for you. Take some time out for understanding who you are and what it is that you really want to do next. And it might be going right back into what you're doing, and that's okay. It is absolutely fine. But at least push the pause button every so often so that when you show up, the better version of you shows up.
Oh, you can't even say that even better. The better version of you
Shows up.
shows up, man. Like, all right, can we coin that? Can we just put that out? Yeah, the better version of you, shows up. I love that. And I'm sure someone needed to hear that right now. Why that's important because it's about what you love. It's about what you're good at, right? What pays is, it's got to be able to support you. And then what the world needs. And the world needs more leaders like yourself, in my humble opinion, because
Thank
you
you.
come across as very genuine, because you are genuine. You're just
Thank
being
you.
who you are, which I think leads to legacy, right? And I want to ask you, what does legacy mean, for Nicole? And how are you building a future leadership that lasts beyond titles and gives real impact?
Wow. Grant, when I think legacy, I honestly think back to my mom. She left a legacy of showing up, being strong, showing up for others. Um, I want to do the same. I want to show up with intention. I want to be intentional. I
Mhm.
want to have that legacy of being honest, um, of accountability. I want to have that legacy of trust. And I think you and I've talked about that before. Um, Believing in people and my other leaders and people that I meet, uplifting someone. I want to have that legacy of someone that you can come to, someone that's helped to empower others to believe in themselves and to show up to be the person, the best person that you are this day.
I think that is, that, and I love how you frame the story because I think legacy is something that's handed down to a certain degree, no matter if good, bad, or different. But taking the good of everything you experience, filter it through, and then present it to someone else in a more refined, packaged point to get them to that next level. Because we all are going to go through certain experiences in life, good, bad, or indifferent, that you may not have the experience around, and
Right.
it makes you feel good when you say, you know what, I have confidence in this area, and I know that I can excel in this area and do well because I can feel myself propelling myself to such a level of expertise that it becomes undeniable. That's your visibility, right? You've gone through the Brave framework now. You've gotten your brand identity. You've done your research, right? You see your authentic self. You're becoming more and more visible, and now you're executing the plan. And one thing I like working with you because it was throughout our whole process, you would ask me questions like, Brad, how do you see this? Grant, what is this? Here's something I'm looking at doing. Give me your input. That's when you take accountability, right? And you become a responsible and you're actually doing the work. Because I can't, create a brand for you. I reveal the brand of who you are. And as you said, because sometimes you're working, you're doing things for maybe a number of years, and you don't always step back and see yourself and where you're at in this process, or have you really even crafted a path forward for yourself over the next 1 to 3 to 5 years and actually tactfully going about that. And when you have a blueprint, you can say, okay, where am I at? Sometimes you have to pull off the
Right.
side of the road, right? Like, where am I at here? Am I supposed to be here? And then you look, and you can look at the compass. Like now we look at a GPS. Am I on the right road, right? But if you don't have that compass, you don't have that blueprint, you don't have that manuscript, you're just a little bit lost. You seem to me as someone has found their rhythm, you know
Yes.
what you want to do, you're going after it. I'm so very proud of you. If you have any last words, I want to make sure that we get everything that you feel you want to talk about out because I think your story is so fantastic.
Well, thank you. The only last parting words that I would say, as it um, its arm around compassionate leadership, is that another thing that's important to me is a lesson that I've learned on unconditional love, right? And when you talk about unconditional love, I'm talking about how we show up and how we address our employees and we address each other. When we are working with employees or we are addressing each other, it's not about if something's going wrong, it's not about the person. We have to take the person outside of that and just look at the actions. It is the actions that we want to correct. In healthcare, let's take a look at what it is that we want to change. Not all of the negatives, but how do we wrap our arms around what is positive? How do we move forward, whether or not we are dealing with people, whether or not we are dealing with processes, whether or not we are dealing with large or small systems? How do we move forward with unconditional love for this career called nursing and move it to the next level?
I think that you said that best. Let's move it to the next level. I want to get some honest feedback right now. I always like doing this, live discussion for myself. you've gone through this framework. You work with me now the last 4 to 5 to 6 weeks. Would you recommend this to someone else? And if you would, why would you do that?
Oh, absolutely. I've already recommended it to other people, and I've already had this conversation. I think I started recommending it. It just brought a conversation I found myself in the midst of, and I was sharing it how I had gotten so much clarity. And once again, the writing that story, my story, really brought clarity to me. And what I also like about the program is that you're providing a roadmap and a plan. So it's not as if I'm being left with this information and there's nothing to do. There's a path, there's still work to do. It's not over. It's kind of just the beginning, right? So I most definitely will recommend this, and I will most definitely want to ask you to invite me to come back future state. I want to talk about because I am so excited about this and following the plan. Where will I be next? On
Oh,
the next segment of this journey, because it's a
wow, I love it.
journey.
Like, all right, we got to have a Nicole part two. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, 2.0.
Yeah, yeah, this is going to be wonderful. This is
Yes.
great. Now, I know you have a LinkedIn presence. I want you to tell the audience how to contact you so we can actually see a little bit of your journey as you progress, right? Right. And so I think that would be great to leave the audience with that information.
So I am on LinkedIn. I am in the midst of updating my LinkedIn profile. Um, and yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not sure there's, what do you call it, a handle, or
Is
it's
it
Nicole Dieudonne, and it talks about me as a director of nursing. It talks about me, what I've done in the past, my years of experience, my vast years of experience. I've traveled, nursing operations. LinkedIn, you'll find all my skills that I've mastered, became the subject matter expert in. Um, LinkedIn, you will find my story.
Yeah, you
You will
said
actually find my story on LinkedIn.
your great story, your wonderful story. We want your you say you have a daughter, you want her to read that, like, wow, yeah, man, that's wonderful. That's
Yes,
wonderful.
I do have a daughter, and she's very proud of me. I would love for her to read that as well.
We're going to make sure she does that. And she can look up all the stories, and you're going to be one of the over 200 different episodes that we have had on the Follow Brand podcast. And we go into our fourth year. It's wonderful. This is a library of information and resource for people to truly understand, like, hey, what's it like to be a nurse leader? They can just tune into your episode. And there's over 200 episodes of different individuals in different areas of career development, business development, technology and information, personal branding, executive presence, brand mastery. All of that is for all of you to tune into. You can do that at 5 Star Medium. That is the number five. That's star, STAR, B for brand, D for development, infomasters.com. I want to thank you again for being on the show and being a great student of mine.
I want to thank you for having me.
You're most welcome.